cabinet from Arcade1up, actually two, Big Buck Hunter, and now Terminator 2 with an all-new look. They are giving us a deluxe cabinet. But actually, we've already had a deluxe. Arcade1up had this crazy idea of recreating an arcade at your own home, whether it's an apartment, a studio, a garage, a basement, even sheds. People have put arcades in their sheds. My buddy Todd has a storage unit that he created an arcade in. Other companies follow. We got iArcade, MBSX, and AtGames. But if it wasn't for Arcade1up giving us the recreation of having an arcade at home, none of this would have happened. Hard to imagine that, you know, some of these games that we played as kids, we'd have them in our homes. I still can't, I can't get over it, and I can't ever part with any of these because of that. It's just like, this was huge. I would have never thought that I would have had X-Men at home. I would have had, you know, my favorite game all time at home. And I could play online with it on top of that. It's just, it is unbelievable having these games. But at the peak of Arcade1up, after basically Time Crisis, the most anticipated shooter of them all, they stopped giving us basically new releases and started rehashing. It actually went backwards. Taking away blade up marquees, making the screen smaller, and cabinets skinnier. But all of a sudden we're getting rehashed deluxe cabinets, turning Terminator 2 into a one-look cabinet. This is the riser. But, like I said, there's already a T2 deluxe cabinet out there. And it's not from Arcade1up. Arcade1up Deluxe inline risers were first produced from G.I. Joe gaming cabinets, giving us any cabinet that had a riser, we could make it look like the true deluxe. For those of us that wanted to keep the deluxe look when XLs were coming out, G.I. Joe created this. You can see that he's had the T2 Arcade1up inline riser already produced. Not only that, but when you select the risers from G.I. Joe, you can actually add a few inches if you want. So at the top of Arcade1up's peak, they went backwards, but now it looks like they're starting to go in the right direction. But we've already had some of these cabinets. What happened to the new releases? Like, they can rehash all they want. That's perfect for the ones who didn't pick up Terminator 2, that didn't pick up Big Buck Hunter. But why would we buy T2 when they're just going to make it a one-look cabinet? We've already taken care of that. Now, I will have a link in the description for G.I. Joe's custom cabinets. This is the place to get any inline riser. Works out absolutely perfect. It's so good that Arcade1up, and I don't want to take any negative thing away from Arcade1up. It's because of them that I went with this. Like, this got me back into retro gaming, and it just leads, it's kind of the gateway, call it if you will, to more and more. And that's what happened with me. I started with Arcade1up, and it's led me all the way to the Switch too. So little backwards technology there, like, you know, kind of thought process, but it's to them. It's because they gave me X-Men, they gave us Turtles, they gave us cabinets that I never thought we would have at home. But they've also kind of taken some ideas from some other third-party sellers here and kind of made it their own. Take a look at the last cabinets that came out that were Walmart specials that didn't have the riser, but then they sell the riser. Anything look familiar here? Here's the original riser, and then all of a sudden, they're doing an inline riser. Wonder what they got the specs from this from. The rehash is great and all. If you haven't picked up T2 yet, there were some incredible sales when T2 was available down to $315. I believe I got mine for $499, but it's not a perfect cabinet. I'll have a link for James Hates Everything on how to hack your T2 with the Team Encoder mod, adding games like Revolution X. Also from Cons R Us and P-Dub's Arcade Loft on the Retro Shooter mod. That's what I have. If you've purchased a cabinet like I have, the only thing you don't have is the inline riser. Now, I am to blame that I have not put the inline riser on my T2 cabinet myself. I'm always so late on any of my mods. But that's the only difference between the cabinet that I have right now and what Arcade1up has already just listed for eBay games. And I'll get to that in a second. But if you're new to the hobby, if you never got T2, if you're interested in having this, which for nostalgic purposes, it is, reasons, it is a great cabinet. But there's only one game on there. There's things you're going to have to do. And I'm going to point out a couple of things that I've had to do to this cabinet. And so whatever the price is, now this is available in Canada, I'm sure it's going to work its way over to the States. So if eBay Games in Canada has it, I'm gonna bet that possibly it'll be available through GameStop and heck, maybe even Best Buy. But there's some things that you might want to do to this cabinet, and it's going to bring the price up. It's going to benefit third-party sellers, but you're going to pay more than what that initial price is. Marquee will definitely need to be replaced. So tack on another $60, $70 just for that. Now, you're looking at the very first Marquee that came with my cabinet. Only issue with this, it looks great from the front. There's no light to shine through. I did poke a hole when I first got this to prove to Arcade1up that the back was cardboard. So this was one of the first major issues with that cabinet, was people were getting cardboard Marquees. Now they did replace the Marquee, did get it a few weeks later, and it's an actual Marquee. The light will shine through. It's just that it will shine through so much that it will almost look washed out when it's up there when your arcade's on, and it's a huge eyesore. This is going to be the Marquee that they have not fixed the Marquee issue. So you're going to get the exact same Marquee that I'm holding right here. So that is going to be another $60, $70 fix. Same thing can be said for the new Big Buck Hunter. This Marquee has never lit up. This is the third, fourth render of this cabinet, and they still have not addressed the Marquee. It's just a piece of wood. Now, off of the new renders of the T2 at eBay Games, they have finally put the coin door on here, and it's a step forward for Arcade1up. The problem with Arcade1up is they take a step forward, then they take a step back. They've changed out the monitors. They've changed out so many things, made the cabinets look skinnier, monitors smaller, not as crisp on some cases. But they actually went back and they put a coin door on T2. Now, if you have T2 like I do and you just want a coin door, they're about $15 through Arcade1up. And I did see a good comment on Michael B's last video that for those who have T2 and you're looking for parts, now you'll have them again with Arcade1up. So that's very true. But if you have this cabinet, you're missing the coin door and you're missing the inline riser. That is it. There is nothing special about that cabinet that's going to be available in the one you have. Unless you never got it, it's a good time to, it's a good chance to get it, but you're going to have to do some things. That's why I wanted to kind of go over some of the things that I did on mine and why I did that. This just dropped on eBay Games. I'll have a link for their site in the description for $849.99 Canada. That's probably, equivalent to $6.99 in the States. That's what T2 originally came out at. You have the behind the scenes bonus footage and one game. So it's nothing different than the cabinet that you already have if you have it. Except for the fact that there's no riser. It's one piece. But again, you can get that through G.I. Joe Gaming if you already have this cabinet. But yeah, there's a coin door. And does it light up? Does the coin door light up, or is it just there? So that's I guess that's a question that I can't answer, but it does have a coin door. Get the same guns. There's going to be nothing different with the light guns. Only thing, is this going to be taller than the one that I have with the riser? And I will get a measurement and compare what they're saying here to what I have in the next room. Their centimeters, 156.21 converted to inches. is 61.5 inches tall. Let's see how high mine is. I was afraid of this. The way that they had the image of a person standing next to the cabinet, how they were kind of looking down on it. Mine is just under 66 inches high. In some cases, having a riser does, bring this up a little bit because there's something that it's sitting on underneath. With the G.I. Joe custom inline riser, you can choose your size. So if you have this, you pick one up secondhand. You can make this taller if you want. Now, you don't have to have the big topper on the top, but I just thought, why not just put everything I can on here? It adds to the size, it adds to the look, and this is the Marquee that I swapped out. So that was about $60 to $66, maybe even $70 to get a Marquee with the midway, and it doesn't wash out. It could be that the sizes aren't exactly 100%. I've had some luck with some of the deluxe cabinets that I've gotten where they actually a little bit higher than some of my original, like X-Men or Turtles, Golden Axe on a riser. It's higher. Those are about 61, but it did say 61.5, so that's kind of Arcade1up's true height. The reason Time Crisis is so high is because the Marquee is basically another monitor on top of the cabinet, so it makes it look higher. The same thing with Big Blue, Street Fighter 2 Big Blue. The Marquee is so massive that the cabinet that might actually be the highest Arcade1up cabinet. There is one downside though. If you're just gonna go with T2 with the one game, even if you install the games on there, there's one problem with the size of the monitor, and I'll use Time Crisis to kind of go off of because I addressed that already with my T2. Now with any light gun game from Arcade1up, you're gonna have the nice crosshair here, so you know what you're doing here. Everything is operated with the gun beads. A little hard to see at night in the dark, but figured it would show up the best on camera. A few buttons on here, but for all controls, the live button and then player 1 and player 2, everything else is the gun. Now something to keep in mind here, that when you're playing any game from Arcade1up, is look at around the monitor. You're going to see that white border. So this is a 17-inch screen from corner to corner. It's going to take away a little bit of that screen size. So you're losing space with that white border. And that's how these guns are going to work. That's how they register. The frame is installed. It's kind of like those robotic lawnmowers that everyone's seeming to get now in their yards. It's like an invisible track that allows that gun to know where the screen is, where the targets are. So you are losing some of that size. So just want to throw that out there.
Action!
And again, I do want to add that, if you want to go to the other games, you're going to have to shoot that arrow. Like there's no joystick here. So the thing is, there's 4 games on this cabinet, which people have said this is a very expensive cabinet. It doesn't really have the nostalgic factor of Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Terminator franchise, but they're great games. And no matter which one we go into, it's going to have that white border. And that's why I picked up my T2 cabinet, is because Schwarzenegger was such a huge part of my childhood. I mean, he was in just about everything. Huge 80s, 90s action star. And every time I walk into this arcade, he's the first thing I see. I meant to put him by the door when I walk in here. Also, something else I want to point out is if you look at the side of the Deluxe T2 cab, they're missing something up here. I installed the decals myself to give it that true arcade feel. So that's another thing, another $20, $30. Not really a big deal, but if you want, you know, to make it look like as much of an arcade as you know, real cabinet as you could, I put one on both sides. Also above the T2 on the front, they don't have that on here either. Now it is a nice cabinet, don't get me wrong. It's just that the Marquee is going to be washed out. The monitor is a little small, and I never changed my Time Crisis monitor. It's not like one of those life or death things, but I just pointed out that many have you know, liked the idea of adding 2 inches to their monitor. You do get an Arcade1up logo right underneath the deck here, which I don't have on mine, and of course that coin door. But it does have that nice one-look cabinet, but this has already been available this entire time. They haven't done anything really different except add a couple of Arcade1up logos on here. Now I changed out my monitor to a 19-inch, so I'm guessing that my old monitor might have said Arcade1up on the bottom, or it might have been on the control deck. Now my control deck is completely different because I have different shooters. I prefer these a lot better than the guns that came with T2, plus I can play more games on here, but I don't have that Arcade1up logo. It's kind of a deluxe thing. You kind of get that with the new branding, so you can tell by the fact that they have it here on Fast and Furious, and now it's on the new T2 that, you know, it's a real render. Like, this is actually happening. You can see why I had to go with that crisp Marquee from Sables. There's no washout. It looks so glossy. You get the Midway logo here. You get a little light bleed through on the bottom, but at least it doesn't look like it's completely washed out. It's a beautiful Marquee. Plus I added his topper, and you know, again, it's one thing after another. It's not something that you necessarily have to do, but if you just want to turn it into, you know, just something special from your childhood. I mean, Terminator, it's just so iconic. I thought I might as well just put in as much as I can, and that's why I went with the retro shooter. And none of these are cheap mods. I mean, it's just going to add up. I basically spent the price of this cabinet twice to put this in here, to add all these games, which I don't play all the games, but I have all of the shooters that I've always wanted. And you're not going to get that when you're just buying T2. So I just want to throw all this out there, that if you've put the money in, if you've done the retro shooter, you're not missing anything. You just need to fix that riser situation, which isn't that big of a deal. And at least that this cabinet is taller than the new one from Arcade1up that's coming out in September. For those of us that have always wanted to have Revolution X, like wishing that this would have been on the Arcade1up cabinet, the only way to get that is what we talked about earlier, through the Team Encoder and the Buy Some Arcades retro shooter mod. But you don't need a T2 cabinet, you don't need a Big Buck Hunter or a Time Crisis to have these games. You could use this on any Arcade1up. It's just the look. If you want the T2 look and you never picked it up before, it's available again. But there's just things, in my opinion, that you're going to have to do to get the most out of it. And playing one game gets a little old after a while, and it's nice to have all these other games, but too many games could be a bad thing too. It's like trying to search for something on Netflix. I want to give a big shout out to Bill's Retro Gaming Show, Michael B. the Game Genie, and James Hates Everything for getting the news out there on the new images of the Big Buck Hunter and T2, of links for their videos in the description. Let's go live. It's just up to us to decide, hey, do I want to invest in another Arcade1up cabinet, knowing that I'm going to have to put a lot of work into this. I'll also have a link for G.I. Joe's Gaming and Buy Some Arcades. I want to thank everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next time. My opinion is, instead of rehashing another cabinet, another same old, and adding a Adding a coin door and a one-look design, they could have given us something like Area 51 or Lethal Enforcer, something new. Because I think that's what we really wanted. We're not looking for another rehash cabinet. There's things we can do to make this an inline riser look. Where's the new titles? And at the end of the day, that's kind of my gripe with Arcade1up is the excitement's there. Let's just use it again. We want new releases, and the hobby's kind of moved to the DIY now, through other third-party companies being able to put all this stuff on one cabinet. That's where we're at, because they never gave us anything new. It is a step forward in the right direction, but I'm afraid that the next cabinet they bring out, they'll be going backwards again. That's Arcade1up. Oh my gosh, I totally didn't mean to do that.